Okay, we've been digging into some powerful information, all centered around using patterned breathing techniques, specifically as a tool for labor and birth.
That's right. Yeah, we're looking at how something as fundamental as breathing, can be consciously harnessed, how it can be shaped to navigate what's a really intense physical and emotional journey.
So, our mission in this is to understand what pattern breathing looks like in this context, why it's considered such a beneficial practice, and then sort of walk through the different techniques that are suggested for various stages of labor.
And as we explore this, you might start to notice how these core principles, breathwork, focused relaxation, they aren't just confined to the birthing room.
Right.
They really offer insights into managing intensity in, well, many areas of life.
Okay, let's unpack this then. When we talk about pattern breathing for labor, what are we specifically referring to?
Well, fundamentally, it's about intentionally controlling the rate and the depth of your breath. The guidance we have mentions distinguishing between, say, deep breathing that engages the diaphragm, feels like it fills your abdomen,
Okay.
and then lighter breathing, which is shallower, more centered in the chest.
So it's moving beyond just, unconscious breathing to finding these deliberate rhythms and approaches.
Exactly. The core idea is to discover and practice patterns that inherently feel calming, patterns that promote relaxation. And a really key point that's emphasized is that whatever technique you're using, it must feel comfortable.
Comfortable, right.
You never feel short of breath or lightheaded, whether you're practicing or actually in labor. It's meant to support you, not add strain.
That makes complete sense. It's a tool for comfort and focus, which brings us to why someone would dedicate time to learning and practicing this. What are the tangible benefits?
This is where it gets really interesting. Breathing can move from something you think about doing when pain hits
Right, a conscious effort.
to becoming an almost automatic reflexive response.
So your body just knows what to do when that intensity shows up. It sort of bypasses the panic response.
Precisely. And that trained response helps you remain in a more relaxed state overall. It allows you to greet the set of contractions with a more positive, prepared mindset. That steady rhythm itself becomes this incredibly calming anchor during labor.
Giving you something constant to hold on to, yeah.
Yes. And it also provides, a profound sense of well-being and control in a situation that can otherwise feel pretty overwhelming. Then on the physical side, conscious, full breathing increases oxygen levels. Think of it as fuel.
Okay.
That extra oxygen provides more strength and energy, not just for you, but crucially for the baby as well.
That's vital fuel for the work ahead. Absolutely.
And it gives purpose to each contraction. Instead of just, enduring it, the focused breathing helps you actively work with the contraction, making it feel more productive.
And you mentioned earlier these techniques aren't limited just to labor.
Right. The principles outlined suggest that these patterned breathing and relaxation techniques can become really valuable tools for handling life's everyday stressors too. Anytime you encounter pain, discomfort, anxiety, or fear.
Which kind of loops back to that idea of them becoming automatic, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Practice under, say, the controlled stress of simulated contractions, and maybe these skills just show up when you need them, facing a tough day or even just a headache.
That's the potential.
So for someone wanting to start, how do you actually put this into practice? Where do you begin?
Well, the suggestion is to weave practice into everyday life. Things like, mundane situations, sitting in traffic, dealing with a headache, even just doing household chores, they become opportunities. Chances to consciously engage with breathing techniques and make them routine.
Using small moments of discomfort as training grounds for the bigger challenges. Clever.
Yeah. And there's a specific simulation technique mentioned too, often used in childbirth classes. Holding an ice cube while you practice your breathing.
Oh, interesting. Why ice?
Well, it introduces a physical sensation, right? Something you have to deliberately work through, which kind of mirrors the need to focus through discomfort during labor.
Okay, that makes sense. So you found your practice opportunities. Maybe you're trying the ice cube thing. What's the very first foundational step when a contraction begins, or you're simulating one?
That would be the organizing breath. It's used right at the start and then again at the finish of each contraction.
The organizing breath. Describe that for us.
As soon as a contraction begins, you take a deep, cleansing, relaxing sigh. During this exhale, trying to go limp all over from head to toe.
Go limp. That paints a great picture. Really letting go of resistance.
Mhm.
And what's the purpose of this initial breath? Why start there?
It serves multiple roles, actually. It helps sharpen your focus immediately, right as the intensity starts. It provides a surge of oxygen for the baby, your working muscles, the uterus, and that deliberate release of tension sets the stage for working with the contraction, not against it.
All right, that organizing breath sounds like the anchor point for the beginning and end. The guidance then moves into different breathing patterns for the first stage of labor. How do you know when to switch between them?
The intensity of the contractions is your guide, really. As labor progresses and the contractions become stronger, demanding more attention, your body will usually signal when it's time to shift gears between the techniques.
Okay, let's start with the first one mentioned, slow breathing. When is that typically used?
It's suggested for when contractions become intense enough that you can no longer easily walk or talk through them without pausing.
Okay.
And you use this pattern for as long as it feels helpful. If you start to feel tense or like you're fighting the breath, that's usually a signal it might be time to transition to a different technique.
And how does slow breathing actually work? What's the process?
You begin with that organizing breath, releasing tension. Then you focus your attention. You inhale slowly through your nose, and then exhale slowly through your mouth, allowing the air to just flow out with a sigh.
Like a release.
Exactly. A key detail here is to pause after the exhale, sort of waiting until your body naturally feels the urge to breathe in again. Don't force it.
A natural, unforced rhythm.
Yes. And with each exhale, you can consciously focus on relaxing a different part of your body, doing a kind of mental scan from head to toe.
Okay, slow breathing for working through that building intensity. What pattern comes into play as labor becomes even more active?
Well, most often the shift is to what's called light accelerated breathing during the active phase. Again, you let the growing intensity guide that transition.
Light accelerated breathing. How do you perform that one?
Okay, so you start with the organizing breath, release tension, focus.
Mm-hmm.
Then you inhale slowly through the nose and exhale through the mouth. But as the contraction ramps up in intensity, you deliberately accelerate and lighten your breathing.
Accelerate and lighten, almost like a quick, shallow breath. Is that right?
Precisely. You breathe in and out rapidly through the mouth, aiming for roughly 1 breath per second. The key is keeping it shallow and light. The inhalation should be pretty quiet, but you want the exhalation to be audible.
Like a gentle pant or maybe a puff sound?
That's a good way to think of it, yeah. And the rate at which you accelerate depends on the contractions pattern. You might speed up earlier if the peak comes quickly, or more gradually if it builds slowly. It's really important to keep your mouth and shoulders relaxed throughout this faster phase.
Right, avoid tensing up. And as the contraction starts to subside,
Then you gradually slow your breathing rate, return to that slower nose-mouth breathing. And then as the contraction fully ends, you take a finishing breath, which is another exhale with a sigh, much like the organizing breath you took at the start.
so organizing breath in, build intensity with light accelerated, slow down as it fades, finishing breath out. Got it. The guidance also describes a third pattern for the first stage, particularly for challenging moments. Variable breathing.
Yes, this is a powerful variation of light breathing. Sometimes it's known by simpler names like pant, pant, blow, or maybe hee-hoo.
Okay.
It's specifically suggested for times in the first stage if you start to feel overwhelmed, maybe lose your ability to relax, or feel moments of despair or just exhaustion.
That sounds like a strategy for regaining control when things get particularly tough. How does it differ from the light accelerated?
Well, it combines those light, shallow breaths with a periodic, more pronounced exhale. So you start with the organizing breath, release tension, focus your attention maybe on your partner or a focal point like a picture. Then you breathe through your mouth in light, shallow breaths. The rate could be anywhere from 5 to 20 breaths in 10 seconds, continuing this through the contraction.
And where does the variable or the blow part come in?
After every few shallow breaths, say every second, third, fourth, or fifth breath, you insert a longer, blown-out breath.
Ah, okay.
You might even find yourself naturally vocalizing that longer exhale with a hoo or maybe a puss sound. This break in the rhythm, it helps to prevent breath holding and seems to offer a way to break through those difficult moments.
And at the end of that type of contraction?
You finish by taking 1 or 2 deeper, relaxing breaths, again with a sigh.
Okay, those are the key patterns for navigating the first stage. Now, the specific challenge that can arise. Feeling the urge to push or bear down before the cervix is fully dilated, before it's actually time.
Right, this can happen in both stages, actually. And the body's natural impulse during these intense urges is often to hold its breath and just bear down.
Which the guidance advises against at that point, right?
Exactly. To prevent inadvertently pushing when it's not the right moment, the technique is to actively avoid holding your breath. Instead, you keep air moving by breathing in and out constantly. perhaps by raising your chin slightly and blowing or panting through the urge.
So that continuous or quick breathing prevents you from building up the internal pressure needed for a full bear-down push. Is that the idea?
That's the idea. It counters that reflexive urge by keeping the airway open and managing that internal pressure until it's truly time.
That brings us then to the second stage of labor, when it is time to push. Are the breathing techniques different here?
They shift, yeah. They adapt to support the work of expelling the baby. This is often called expulsion breathing. Once the cervix is fully dilated and the second stage begins, the whole approach adapts.
How does that phase begin, breathing-wise?
You start, as always, with the organizing breath. Release tension. Focus, maybe visualizing the baby moving down or holding another positive image. You breathe slowly between the pushing urges, letting the contraction build. You might accelerate or lighten your breathing if needed for comfort, just in those moments before the irresistible urge takes over.
And when that powerful urge does arrive, what happens then?
Okay, when you cannot resist the urge, when your body's demanding you join in, you take a big breath, tuck your chin towards your chest, curl your body forward slightly and lean into it. Then you bear down.
While holding your breath? Or is there another option mentioned?
The guidance gives two options here. You can either hold your breath during the push, or you can slowly release air with a grunting or moaning sound as you bear down.
Okay, so the bearing down action itself. What's highlighted as the absolute most important element during these pushes?
The crucial instruction, really emphasized, is to relax the pelvic floor. While you're bearing down with your upper body and diaphragm, you need to consciously release tension in the muscles at the base of your pelvis, the perineum, that area between the vagina and the anus.
Right.
This helps create the necessary space for the baby to descend.
That feels almost counterintuitive, bearing down intensely up top while consciously relaxing other muscles down below.
It is, but it's about directing the effort efficiently. The power comes from above, but the path needs to be open below.
Right, makes sense. How long do you push?
Typically, you'll bear down for about 5 to 6 seconds, then release your breath, take a few quick recovery breaths, and then when the urge to push surges again within that same contraction, you join in again. The intensity of your push should really be guided by what your body's sensation is telling you.
So working with the waves of the contraction, not fighting them, using the rhythm.
Exactly. The urge to push, it comes and goes in waves throughout the contraction. You actively use those breaks between the surges of intensity to breathe deeply.
Bringing back that vital oxygen we talked about earlier.
Yes. Those deep breaths during the breaks refuel your blood, provide necessary oxygen to the baby. And then, when the contraction finally ends, you consciously relax your entire body and take 1 or 2 calming breaths, completing the cycle.
It's really clear these breathing techniques aren't just random acts. They form a very structured approach. Why does bringing all these specific methods together matter so profoundly for labor?
Well, it provides a framework, doesn't it? A practical way to channel your energy and attention during what is undoubtedly one of life's most demanding physical and mental experiences. These different techniques are like a toolbox, offering specific strategies tailored to the changing phases and intensities of labor.
It seems like it could transform the experience, moving from something you're just trying to survive, maybe, into something you can actively participate in and navigate with intention.
Precisely. Understanding these methods gives you concrete actions to take. It fosters a sense of agency, preparation for this really significant challenge.
And as you said earlier, these techniques can help with life's everyday stressors. If pattern breathing can be practiced and honed to face the sheer intensity of labor, well, what other areas of your life, big or small, could benefit from consciously applying focused breath and intentional relaxation techniques?
That is a powerful question to sit with, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, that was a truly insightful deep dive into how patterned breathing can serve as such a powerful tool during labor and birth.
Thank you for exploring this with us. It's fascinating stuff.
We really hope this conversation has offered a clearer picture of these techniques and their potential to support you through this experience. Keep breathing, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.